Yes, here we are, Sports Bit, Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy on SBRpicks.com. Wednesday, April 18th, big game breakdown. 3 more games in the NBA playoffs. We love that. And we'll look at the adjusted future book and some adjusted series prices coming up. And we'll get to that in the shot clock and the play of the day. Of course, bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. A tough beat. The sickest beats in Major League Baseball. 3-1 Dodgers. The total was 8. 3-1 Dodgers in the bottom of the ninth. Jansen blows another save. Padres tie it. Dodgers get 4 in the 12th. They win 7-3. Jansen has blown more saves already as we sit here in April and did all of last year. 2-1.
and of course, the Dodgers get the win anyway with the blown save, which makes it even more disgusting if you had, San Diego, if you had under in that ballgame, whatever it was. The bottom line is you nailed it, Pauly. The very worst beats are going to come with bullpen meltdowns. This one of many we'll talk about over the course of the long MLB campaign.
All right, how about some bad bets? Let's start in the NBA. The Bucks took money from 3 down to 1. They gave up 120 points. They had 15 more turnovers. They were 7-17 from the line. Rozier carved them up again. Jaylen Brown had 30. Celtics lead the series 2-0.
Yeah, and look, I had Milwaukee money in my pocket last night. It was wrong from the get-go. And if you watch the first half play out in that ballgame where the Bucks are shooting a ridiculous percentage,
yes,
particularly from 2-point range, and still trailing by double digits, they turned the ball over just like they did in the first meeting. They didn't play a whole lot of defense, just like they did in the first meeting. And Eric Bledsoe saying, who? When it comes to Terry Rozier after the ballgame, it's an embarrassment for Milwaukee, an embarrassment for Bledsoe. The Stevens versus Prunty coaching mismatch, it was on display last night. The Celtics were better prepared, and it showed. Unfortunately, that cost me a wager. Wasn't happy about that game one bit, Pauly.
Wizards got us play of the day as well. Toronto ran them out, 76 points in the first half. Wall and Beal were in foul trouble. How about Beal? They were outscored by 34 points when he was on the floor. But in any event, we had a nice run going of overs in the NBA, which came to an end with the late game. They got me again. Playoff Rondo. But as far as the total, the Blazers bet up the total from 213.5 to 217, and it fell 213. Pelicans take the first 2 on the road.
Yeah, I mean, impressive start to the series for New Orleans. Series isn't done yet. These series go 7 games, and the best team's got to win 4 to survive in advance. But you talked about it on the show yesterday. The biggest disappointment from game 1 was the backcourt of Lillard and McCollum. What happened last night? Playoff Rondo outplays Lillard again. Big time in that contest. For bettors, however, with the money going over, and then just sneaking under. Oh, that's brutal. 213 up to 217. Lands 213.5 up to 217. Lands 213. Ouch. That, not a good result for over bettors. A very good result for the bookmakers.
Holiday's been terrific. He's been awesome in this series. Yankees $3 up to 340. Routed at home by the Marlins 9-1. And the White Sox A's under from 9 down to 8.5. 10-2 A's in that one.
Yeah, I mean, again, 2 games where the betting markets got it wrong. Yankees getting steamed up. They were never in that contest. Good for Miami. Give them credit for the rare victory. Same thing with that total. You know, you get one team flying over the total by themselves. All the steam, all the sharp money, all of that was wrong. Another good result for the bookmakers.
A little more baseball here. Bad for the books. Wood finally got a win for the Dodgers. At least when he was, the Dodgers got a win while Wood was on the mound. $1.95 up to $2.20. The 4 runs in the 12th, as we mentioned earlier. Astros $1.75 up to $2. 4-1 at Seattle. McCullers 7 innings and 1 hit allowed only. I'm worried about that Houston offense. They're in a funk right now.
That being said, you know, we talk about the popular favorites in baseball. Dodgers a popular favorite. Astros a popular favorite. What does the public do when they look at popular favorites that are big chalk? They bet them on the run line. What happened last night? Dodgers cashed in on the run line and extras. Astros, even though the offense wasn't going, McCullers pitched a gem. They cash on the run line as well. So that duo in particular, Dodgers and Astros winning, Dodgers and Astros on the run line winning, that was not a good game. Or those were not good games for the house yesterday, certainly when it came to parlay liability.
Little hockey. Capitals took money in a must-win. Plus 120 down to even. Beat Columbus in double overtime 3-2. Trotz was like a buffoon after he waited to put Holtby in there till game 3. Maybe they lead the series if Holtby started from the get-go. And 3 unders last night. All 3 games went under in the NHL playoffs after we had the 9-0-3 run to the over in the last 3 nights. All 3 road teams win as well. And the Vegas Golden Knights sweep the Kings. They're the first expansion team in league history to sweep their first playoff series. Teddy, they scored 7 goals in the series and swept the Kings. 36-5 when they score first. Amazing.
Fleury, man. Fleury has been unreal. But, I mean, Vegas, when it comes to the Golden Knights, continues to be not a story, the story in the hockey world. Again, we're talking about an out of nowhere. We're talking about a team that in this first, despite their dominant season, first round, they were very short favorites, priced pretty close to pick 'em. Maybe we'll start to see some betting market respect for the Golden Knights after this series win. But frankly, Pauly, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think if you're riding Vegas, you keep on riding them. Unfortunately, if you were riding the unders or the over streaks in the NHL yesterday, not a good result for overbettors, obviously, as all 3 games cashed under tickets.
All right, how about some adjusted future odds from William Hill and adjusted series prices? Now updated this morning. To win the East, the Raptors are plus 110, Cavs are plus $1.60, and the Sixers are plus 350. In the West, the Warriors now the favorite, minus 120. Rockets even money, OKC 10-1, and the Pelicans now 22-1 after they win again in Portland.
Sure. Talk about some of the adjusted series prices going into this right now. Because, of course, when you're talking about the future book, only one team's going to win. When you're talking about adjusted series prices, one team's going to win every series. And so, in general, these are bets that I really like to get involved with. We look at adjusted series prices now. Cleveland still more than $2 favorite over Indiana. OKC's up to $2.30 after winning game 1 against Utah. The Sixers still big chalk, minus 340 versus plus 280 against Miami. Those are the 3 series priced most competitively as we head into the game 2s and game 3s over the course of the next couple of days.
Yeah. And to win the title, Golden State plus 105, Houston plus $1.10. You got Toronto and the Cavs in there with the Sixers and OKC. We'll get back to this with the shot clock later in the show before the play of the day. Up next, big game breakdown. The 3 games in the NBA playoffs up next on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Here we go. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. I'm at Real SportsBit. He's at Teddy_Covers. The early game, Pacers and the Cavs. Cavs are 8, 211.5 the total. Not only did the Pacers win game 1, they never trailed. And they led by 20 by the time LeBron made his first shot. This is big. The supporting cast with Cleveland, Teddy. Corver and Calderon did not score. Hood, Hill, Love, and Green combined for 25 points. Hill also left the game in the third quarter. The game 1 loss as well. Oladipo dominated. We'll see. It comes down to the supporting cast bounce back for Cleveland tonight.
And that's the biggest issue, obviously. We're talking about LeBron James. We're talking about the best player in the NBA. So Cleveland has the best player on the floor at all times. They're supposedly bouncing back off a game 1 loss. But boy, betting markets aren't offering a whole lot of bargains on the Cleveland side of the equation here, especially when we consider what this Cavs roster actually looks like. Yeah, you got LeBron. When you look at the rest of the pieces, who do you see on Cleveland like, yeah, that guy would start on any team. That guy would start on any team. No. It's LeBron as the one guy. And, you know, we talked about Cleveland in his first, you know, when he got drafted and then went through those series with the Cavs and got the Cavs to respectively before he made a decision to go to South Beach in Miami. And we're talking about LeBron and the Seven Dwarves and LeBron and, you know, the nobody there. That might be the case for Cleveland right now. The more you watch the Cavs, the less impressed with Cleveland you actually are. Kevin Love is an impact player, is a superstar? No, you know, not at this stage of his career. So when you start talking about laying 8 in a game like this with a Cleveland team that, yeah, their back's against the wall. And yeah, when they're hitting 3-pointers, they can start to rain three-pointers on opposing teams. That's the Cavs' strength. But they didn't hit a whole lot in the first game. And if the supporting cast plays today like they did on Sunday, they'll get beat straight up again, Pauly. They really will.
Yeah, you're right. There's not a lot to like with the supporting cast. And what happens if they don't shoot the ball well? Because they're the second worst defense in the league. That's also cause for concern. So while people were taking a victory lap at the trade deadline when they made all these moves, they played well against Toronto in a couple games, but off to a rough start in this series. And this is big because if Toronto can take out Washington early in 4 or 5, and this thing could go 6 or 7, that's a big deal. It's in Toronto has home court, and Cleveland's got to go through them as well. LeBron did have the triple-double. Lou called them out, said be more aggressive from the get-go as well. The Pacers did they were on national television one time the whole year, and they flew over their win total. Nobody talked about them. Nobody saw them. We forgot about them when they traded Paul George. But Oladipo was great. McMillan did a great coaching job. Their win total, I think, was 31. Flew over, and they played great defense, even though they were tied for 12th in defensive efficiency. So and they shouldn't have the mentality and the mindset of mission accomplished. We got the split. They can come out there, and they should be confident. They kicked their ass. Cleveland only made one run in that game when they cut it down to 7, and then bam, right back up to double digits, and they win by 18.
Sure, and when you talk about this Pacers team, you made a great point. The public doesn't know Indiana. Even the betting public isn't really enamored with this squad. It's the Cavs and whoever they're going to beat in this series. And obviously, as we saw in game 1, Indiana's like, you better take us seriously. Oladipo hitting three-pointers in that contest. But it's not just Oladipo. We talk about Miles Turner as a guy who kind of slumped down the stretch. He looked a little bit gassed. Boy, he had an impressive game 1. And the supporting cast for the squad, and most particularly Sabonis and Stevenson. You know, Lance Stevenson, after all these years, he still comes in off the bench, and he has an instant impact every time he's in the game. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But Lance Stevenson's energy is something that the Pacers have absolutely fed off of this season. I think it comes tonight. I'll tell you what, I want no part of Cleveland laying the price here. If I'm playing this game, I could only take Indiana plus the points. Maybe you take a look at the over after the Cavs shot 8 of 34 from three-point range in game number 1 of this series.
All right, Jazz and Thunder. Thunder are 4.5, 206.5 the total. They won game 1, 116-108. Entertaining game. Mitchell was left, and then he's got that foot contusion. He's expected to play, and PG-13 has got the hip as well, as George should play as well, but he's nicked up. How about this tweet from Joe Osborne? The Jazz have lost 15 in a row at OKC, and the last 3 by an average of 14 points per game. Mitchell played well when he was in there, but he didn't get a lot of help. Gobert was okay. Rubio was 5 of 18. Ingles didn't do much. So the supporting cast has to play well. But Paul George, Jesus, 36 points, and he hit 8 threes in the win. Adams a little bit nicked up too, but they got the big boost, the lift from Brewer in the acquisition there. So forget about Melo. If I'm talking big 3 again, it's Adams, George, and Westbrook.
It has been all year. I mean, Melo is a media creation. Melo is a has-been star who had a reality TV show, and his name recognition is high. And Melo. But if you ask me who's the 3rd most important or the 3 most important players on OKC, Melo's name is not going to come to mind. Obviously, Steven Adams is the 3rd in the big 3 for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I thought he was very impressive against Rudy Gobert when you talk about that low post matchup that, in many ways, is going to determine the series. For Utah, you say, what can you turn around? You've struggled against OKC in this venue. The point guard matchup isn't necessarily a great one for you when it comes to being able to defend Russell Westbrook. And they were hitting shots. They hit 11 three-pointers. They hit 47% from the field in game 1. They got to 108. This is a Utah team that we think about their strength. It's defensively. But I've seen it a couple times this year. When they go up against the explosive offenses, the teams that can score and create from anywhere on the floor, they've had problems with Houston, and obviously they had a problem with OKC. And if you notice, when you look at the adjusted price, not the adjusted series price, the adjusted point spread between game 1 and game 2, Game 1, 3.5 for the sharp money all over OKC. Sorry, all over Utah, plus the points saying they're going to hang tough. And look at the Thunder defensive stats. Now for Game 2, we normally see a little bit of zigzag. No zigzag in the markets here. This line was priced higher than the Game 1 line, saying maybe that initial point spread and that initial money line was giving the Utah Jazz a little bit too much credit.
Yep. Defensive efficiency, Jazz second in the league. OKC is 10th. The late game, 6:30 Pacific, Game 2. T-Wolves and the Rockets. Rockets won Game 1. Didn't cover, 104-101. They've been horrible laying double-digit chalk. More on that in a second. They're 10.5 and 214.5 the total at Intertop Sportsbook. 22 years online. Sign up, deposit, and win. They don't win this game last year, Teddy. Harden was great, 44 points. Capella played well, who's number 1 in the league in field goal percentage. But, I mean, look, this is ugly. 10 of 37 from 3. Tucker and Ariza combined 2 of 11. Chris Paul, who people are ripping him because of his playoff failures. He's never been to a conference final. He comes out in Game 1, 5 of 14 with 6 turnovers. Gordon was 3 of 10, but they still won the game. Harden, yes, with 44 points, but because of the defense. Believe it or not, they finished 6th in the league in defensive efficiency. They hold Minnesota to 101 points. They don't play well. They don't shoot it well. They still get the win.
Yeah, and some of that's certainly Karl Anthony Towns. When you talk about how did they actually win the game or how did Minnesota not get the straight-up victory, Towns didn't play well. And Towns basically dominated by Capella in that game. I mean, how else are we going to call it, Pauly? You know, the bottom line is if Towns brings his A game, Minnesota wins. Yep. And the fact that he got badly outplayed by the Rockets, third of their big 3, certainly an issue for Coach Tibbs moving forward. But here's a Houston team that got everything they could possibly get out of James Harden in that ballgame. And yet the supporting, you talked about Paul, you know, what of Ariza? 1 for 6 shooting. Tucker 1 for 5. Gordon 3 for 10. Green didn't hit a 3-pointer. Harden hit 7 of 12 from 3-point range. And the rest of the team was what? 3 of 25? Houston will shoot better than that from 3-point range tonight. We can count on it. The question is, can Minnesota counter and can Minnesota find a way to steal it? And even a broader question, Paulie, I don't want to go too long on this, but the broader question here, Game 1 priced 10.5, 11, 11.5. There wasn't 11 points worth of difference between these two teams when you watched them on the floor. Now, here we are, Game 2. There's been a minor adjustment down to 10, 10.5. If you watch Game 1, there wasn't that big of a difference between these two squads. But the season-long power ratings say Houston's got to be double-digit chalk here. So the question is, what we saw in Game 1, is that real, Paulie? Are these two teams a little bit closer, perhaps, than the power rating might indicate?
Well, in the regular season, it was a horror show. The Rockets averaged 129 points per 100 possessions against the T-Wolves, and they couldn't guard them. But you don't have Mbah Moute and Anderson either as well. But Houston has been a horror show, laying more than 8.5, and they are on a 4-14 ATS run, laying double digits. So it's playoff time. The goal is to win the game. The Rockets just want to get out of there and win, whether it's by 7, 8, 9, whatever. They're not concerned about blowing them out either. So everything went wrong for the Rockets, and they still won. But you're right. That came down to the final possession, and maybe the T-Wolves got the win. We'll get back. Almost got the win. We'll get back to this one.
Let me jump in real quick, Paul.
Yep.
Because we talk about impact injuries. Luke Mbah Moute is an impact injury. Okay, he's not going to be. It's not a situation where the point spread is going to be effective. Not even a half point. But without him and Anderson on the floor, all of a sudden, there's a weakness at the 4 spot. There's a weakness defensively compared to where they were. And there's a weakness on the board. Mbah Moute does so many little things that don't show up in the box score. He's an impact player. The market's not pricing him in that way.
We'll turn on the shot clock up next. Any value in the futures market in the NBA? I think there's a good one. So does Teddy. And we'll get to the play of the day on SportsBit 2.0. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Paulie and Teddy. Let's turn that shot clock on. Any value in the future market here with the NBA, with the adjusted series prices and the adjusted odds, Teddy? I'll start. I'll take the Warriors minus 120 to win the West. It wasn't that long ago that they were minus $3 in some spots to win the title with the yes-no. Oh, they're power rated to the moon. Rockets off to a slow start. Paul's never been to the conference finals. They should take out the Spurs in 4 or 5. I don't think the Pelicans. It's a great story, but I think it's a bad matchup for the Pelicans in the second round as well. And who knows? I mean, the Rockets got to face OKC. That could be the matchup in the second round too. So I'll take the Warriors minus 120 to win the West. I definitely think there's value there.
And when you talk about the concept of value, a team that spent a good portion of the season at minus $3 to win the title, now priced at minus 120 to win the West. Yeah, I don't disagree with that concept of there's some value there, Pauly. That being said, I'm going to talk about a team where all the value has been sucked out of and they're still going to win the East, and that's still the only bet that I'd make to come out of the East. And that, of course, is the Philadelphia 76ers. We talked about Philly at 25-1 and 20-1 and come out of the East at the All-Star break, and they were 10-1 and coming out of the East. Well, now they're plus 350, and you know what? Philly's coming out of the East. You know, that's the bet to make. That's the only bet that I would make in the Eastern Conference. I know Boston won and looked good last night. Again, I don't think the Celtics will be healthy enough or cohesive enough to come out. Cleveland, we talked about them earlier in the show. There's no favorite in the East. When there's no favorite, you look at some live dogs. Philly, obviously, even after that Game 2 home loss to Miami, they're live to come out of the East big time.
Yeah, they stunk, and they were still down too late. And maybe that Embiid social media tirade will get him on the floor tomorrow in Game 3. We'll touch on that coming up. Money time play of the day, betting number 521. Take the T-Wolves plus the 10.5, right? Hey, Rockets just want to win the game, and Game 1 was close. Also, Houston's been a horror show, laying more than 8.5, and especially double digits. Right back with the T-Wolves plus the 10.5, Game 2 tonight. We're back tomorrow. More NBA games, triple header, recap the NHL, and some Major League Baseball as well. We'll talk to you then on SportsBit 2.0, betting insight today on SBRpicks.com. And thanks to SBR for the donation. And hopefully we have some good news on Dave Malinsky as well. Thanks for watching.